I'm Catriella Friedman, and I'm sitting with Jonathan Mirvis. And in the first segments of this series, you basically laid out a roadmap for a social vision entrepreneur. You introduced concepts from corporate entrepreneurship and how the social vision entrepreneur can take those concepts and move their vision forward. You talked about the difference between social needs and social vision, jobs to be done, creating a text and a context. And now you just spoke about the macro theory of change. So now we've got these ideas, and let's say we have this entrepreneur, the social vision entrepreneur, they have a vision and it's plausible. What kinds of strategies can the entrepreneur now take in order to really implement that vision successfully? What kinds of things should the entrepreneur keep in mind?
So when we talk about innovation strategies, the one that comes to mind is the one which, of course, is common in the commercial world, which is the development of new products, new technologies. The great entrepreneurs of today, whether they be Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, basically developed something new. However, within the context of what we're talking about, the chance of social entrepreneurs actually developing a new device or so is actually of lesser degree, given that we don't have the capital, we don't have the resources and the know-how. And thus in this session, I'd like to focus on a strategy which does not involve the utilization of major resources, but rather looks at the resources that we have and tries to make a sense of how do we capitalize on what we have and make sure that we get the best return on investment. And this strategy I call bridging. Bridging is taking two forces which exist in isolation, and bringing them together. And by bringing them together, ultimately, we create a bridge between them which creates a social value. One of the greatest examples of bridging within the social terrain is a story of Dress for Success, which was developed by Nancy Lublin, then was a young Jewish lady in New York. Nancy was a law student, and her father was a lawyer. And as Nancy relates, her father used to upset her because her father used to tell her, "Nancy, brush your hair." And Nancy used to say to her, "But Dad, why do I have to brush my hair?" And her father used to tell her, "You see, Nancy, appearance is actually quite important because people take notes of your appearance." And he gave her an example. He said when he interviewed secretaries, his window overlooked the car park. And when the secretary used to come for the interview, she got out the door, he already decided whether the secretary was worth interviewing or not. Nancy was very angry about that, but she never forgot it. And many years later, she received an inheritance from her grandfather. And she decided to do something noble with the inheritance. And she looked for something to do. She spoke to a law professor, and he suggested that they consult with one of the nuns in one of the churches in Harlem. Nancy went to the church and she described it. She thought she was going into Sister Act and saw the nuns actually didn't dance. They actually prayed and ministered the flock. And this nun, when she spoke to her, told her that one of the biggest issues of those within that community were that while these women were capable of getting jobs, when they went for their job interviews, because they were not dressed in the best attire, they did not get through the first round of interview. And then Nancy came up with an idea. What would happen if I would start a salon for women who were to be interviewed? They would borrow the dress, get the dress in the attire, and go to the interview. And she was very fortunate. It was Dress Down Day, started in America and New York. There were many women who were discarding their suits. She gathered the suits together, and that started a major organization called Dress for Success, which literally is hundreds of thousands of women have secured employment as a result of this bridge. Now let's clearly understand, Nancy did not buy the dresses. Nancy did not sew the dresses. What Nancy did was she created a bridge between dresses which existed, women who needed them, and created this tremendous social value. That is the power of bridging. As a result of Nancy's innovation, literally hundreds of thousands of women world over have landed jobs. Dress for Success exists in many major cities throughout the world. And the brilliance is, of course, that Nancy did not have to invest in clothes. The clothes existed. The need existed. What Nancy used her few dollars was to build the bridge. And it is this bridge which created the social value.
So she really acted as a matchmaker more than anything. So that's a great example from the general world. Can you give an example from the Jewish world of this concept of bridging, this strategy?
Alan Hoffman, who's now the Director General of the Jewish Agency, he had this amazing idea of how to get the non-customers who do not come to Israel and spend time in Israel to come to Israel and participate in activities, educational activities, which they had not previously thought of. And he developed a program when he was the Director of Jewish Education at the Jewish Agency called Masa. What does Masa do? Masa matches programs in Israel with students overseas and gives a grant in this respect. This grant is not necessarily a major grant, but it's the grant which is enough to ensure that it happens. As a result of which, thousands of kids who until this point of time had not considered spending the gap year in Israel or the post-university year in Israel are now here on a regular basis, ultimately forming their bond and connection with Israel.
Can you take a moment to describe the wisdom of Hoffman's decision not to have the Jewish agency create those programs, but the Jewish agency be more of a clearinghouse to offer those programs?
I think this because he clearly understood the power of bridging. By understanding that the power of bridging is that I don't have to offer the program, but rather I have to be the agent to make the program happen. That in itself is the power of bridging, because it brings all these wonderful forces, multiple educational organizations, which in Israel had not contemplated having students to enable them to interact with the students.
Thank you. So now we want you to take a look in your community and see where does the opportunity and potential for bridging exist, and how can you harness this very powerful strategy?